Katey, I think would love to just understand just maybe the first question, which is why to recruit in the first place? Like, why are we talking about recruiting this much? Why do we have a session on recruiting? Why is it so important from your perspective?
Well, here's the thing I've found in my experience in leadership, working with real estate leaders and actually even running real estate offices myself, is recruiting changes everything. So if you think about recruiting is your yellow brick road to wherever you need to be. So if you're saying you're looking around your office and we're like, wow, we don't have enough people that are like the party people, right? We have an office full of people that are heads down, or maybe they're super analytical, or they kind of come in, they do their work, they get out, but we don't have a lot of fun in our office, and we kind of need somebody to bring some fun factor. Recruit to that. That is the fastest way to change your culture in whatever way you need change. So if you need maybe the opposite, we have a lot of fun, but we actually need some more people in the office that are more that heads down, let's get stuff done, let's, hit people that are great at picking up the phone, people that are great at open houses, whatever you see in your office as an opportunity for growth, recruit to that. Because then it makes it easier when you're picking up the phone or when you're meeting agents out and about at networking events to say, okay, I know what I'm looking for. I'm looking for somebody that can come to my office because this is what we're lacking. And maybe in those cases, it's a little bit of matchmaking. Maybe that person is looking for an office like yours. They just didn't know it existed. And so it's an opportunity to change. Obviously, recruiting is the lifeblood of most offices, most real estate offices or your team, because that's going to help you grow your business, right? The more agents you have that are actively working and are contributing to your bottom line, then that's how you can stay open. That's how you can continue to provide support and service to not only the agents that work for your company or your team, but also to the community, right? And that you bring value to the team. So it changes everything.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point and often overlooked, right? People often talk about the kind of the financial benefit of recruiting, but I think the kind of cultural pieces, the pieces around rounding out the skill sets, and also just showing positive momentum to the agents that you have, right? And
Mhm,
so
mhm.
bringing on, high caliber folks or high culture carrying folks to the team can be really motivating to the rest of the group. And sometimes bringing in, folks that are even more productive than some of the folks on the roster can kind of elevate the game. And we're
Right.
also typically learning from one another, right? Agents are learning from one another. And so having a diverse set of skills and different strengths represented on the roster can be beneficial actually to the existing folks that are there and show that the company is kind of able to kind of bring that kind of talent in.
Yeah, it
I think,
validates your choice. It validates if I'm in the office and I've been at this company for 5 years, and then somebody comes on board who I know in the marketplace, or maybe that for whatever, however I know them and I respect them. Now it's revalidating my choice of being at this company. So it absolutely has that ripple effect inside. Even if you bring on a new agent that has a background that's really interesting or dynamic or different from everybody else's, it's like, oh yeah, they're a new agent, but wow, they have this as a background. Like that's super interesting. So it doesn't always have to be like, oh, you brought in the number two producer in your area. It can be a brand new agent who has a skill set or was like the PTA president in in one of the biggest schools in your area and it's massively connected. Well, that's kind of cool that that person decided when they got their license to join our company because we know, in our environment, they're going to kill it. They're going to be amazing.
yeah, I think it's a great point. Someone had mentioned, we'll get into some of the specific questions in a second, but someone had mentioned that it feels like movement is kind of slowing down right now. And I kind of want to address that in the context of just
Mhm.
movement broadly and some of the data that we're looking at. So counterintuitively, it's actually counter to what I was expecting when we ran this analysis. Fewer agents move in a slower market. I actually expected the opposite, that when agents were less busy, more would move. So generally speaking, when the market goes up, more people tend to move. My suspicion there, although I can't prove this, is that brokerages are getting a little bit more aggressive in terms of the offers, and more people are doing more interesting stuff and cross the threshold of being a $5 million producer and then being able to be recruited by a company. That said, recruiting oscillates in a very kind of tight band. So not the percentages, it's sometimes somewhere between 16 and 18% of the last 5 years. And so the 2024 movement accounted for $480 billion of sales volume and over $12 billion of commissions nationally that moved from one company to the next. And to try to conceptualize that number, think of Compass, the national brokerage, double it in size, and that's how much sales volume moved last year. And so that's effectively like the opportunity at stake. And we actually have a lot of data on the movement by market. So if you're interested in taking a look at any of those kind of migration patterns for your market specifically, and which types of agents moved more than others, feel free to reach out to us. Chris can share some of our information in the chat towards the end. I think the next question that I'd like to kind of pose to you, Katey, and I bring it up because you mentioned it to Chris and I in some of the prep for this, is to kind of talk about maybe the parallels of maybe the listing appointment and the recruiting presentation. I never really thought about it as somewhat analogous. So tell us, I don't know if there's an exercise that you want people to do, or just to kind of describe how you think about that.
Yeah, so it's actually a class I've taught to broker owners in the past. And so for those of you that are broker owners, I will, if I do this one, the last time I taught it in a group, I had everybody stand up if they like listing appointments, because most broker owners are still out there doing their real estate business. They still have ties to the community. And they love listing presentations. They love sitting down at somebody's kitchen table and helping them with their largest financial investment of their lives, whether it's buying or selling, but typically they love the listing and presentation, and they love the listing appointment. They love the call, hey, we're connecting. So I'm like, well, if you love listing appointments, then you also love recruiting, because it's exactly the same process. So I know a lot of people that run real estate offices are like, oh, how come the agents won't pick up the phone and call their database or call people, their friends, their family, and just get into relationship with them so that they can get into the path of business when there is a life change? As most people buy and sell real estate because of time of their life, not timing the market. Nobody loves to move. I have yet to meet anybody who says, hooray, I'm moving today, right? It's like, oh, I'm moving today, right? Because it's painful. And so the same thing happens with recruiting, right? Why do we need to pick up the phone to stay in relationship with realtors in a marketplace? For the same reason that we ask the agents as leaders to stay in touch with their database. So it's parallel. One of the things I used to do when I was running a real estate office is I would do a couple days a week, I would do calling with Katey. And we'd get together in the room, and we'd talk about what was happening in the market, what are some statistics we could share, and objection handling. Like we talked about the Stump the Professor, about, you're going to call your database, your friends, your family, the names in your phone, literally start with EAs, and just stay in relationship for when a life event happens. And, having those kinds of conversations. What do you say? How do you, what's the next step? And then we'd go and make calls for 45 minutes or an hour, and then regroup and say, how'd it go? Did you get any appointments? Did you get any referrals? And then I would give my numbers. This is how many dials I made. This is how many appointments I scheduled for the office, because just like we said before, agents that are in your office that know that you're out there talking to other agents about how amazing your particular company is, the better. But it's the same concept, which is why we used to do it at the same time, that I'm making calls to my agent database while agents are making calls to their personal database to stay in the path of business. The same thing happens at a listing presentation. When you get an appointment for a listing appointment, you're going to do a little bit of homework. Same thing that you do when you're sitting down to talk to somebody who you might want to attract to your real estate company. Look, do we get a signed listing agreement with every listing appointment? Of course not. So why would every agent we talk to, like, oh, I talked to 5 agents and only 3 of them came over and you're mad about the other 2? Well, No, you don't get every listing appointment either. So don't go into the expectation of, this is the one person, and you're starting to white knuckle the relationship, because that never works. In the same way, it doesn't work in a listing, right? We call it commission breath, right? So but you're having similar conversations, you're building rapport, you're asking questions, you're presenting your solution, and then you discuss what are next steps. Those are exactly the same steps that you use in a recruiting conversation. They're exactly the same. And guess what? Every single one of us who've ever sat at somebody's kitchen table having a listing presentation, we've had those meetings where like, oh, we're not a fit. We're not a fit. I'd really love to get this listing because it's a great property in a great neighborhood. But the sellers and I are just not seeing eye to eye. And you're like, hey, thanks so much for your time, right? We're moving on. And the same thing happens in a recruiting meeting. Sometimes you meet with somebody like, yeah, we're not a fit. Like you're not gonna, you would not enjoy our culture, our environment, how we do things, because how you're just told me how you run your business, and that's kind of polar opposite to how we do ours. And hey, I'm happy to stay connected with you, happy to be a resource for you, but you're just like, you would hate working in our office, right? And I think we've all had those. I mean, I know when I was interviewing to where I was going to go and hang my license, there were some people I talked to and I was like almost instantly repelled. We were not a match, right? And it doesn't mean you don't like each other in the business. It's just that, professionally, it's not a match, and that happens.
Mhm.
But they're exactly the same process, exactly the same.
Yeah, there's so much gold in that, right? And I think one of the things that one of many things that kind of resonated with me is in a listing presentation, we would always bring comps, right? That's kind of obvious. And so in a conversation with an agent, they also want to feel that you've kind of done your homework about them. And I think that's a really nice kind of segue into the theme of some of the questions that we've been receiving, which is there a magic text? What's the right mix of text versus call versus email? And I'd almost like to rephrase that question slightly. So rather than thinking about us and what's easy for me, I'd almost like to say, what does the agent prefer in terms of communication? That's a loaded question. And so we'll probably have to unpack that a little bit. But just kind of at the highest level, Katey, when you think about how the agent prefers to be interacted with from a recruiting perspective, maybe we can just start with that, like first outreach. What are some of the things that you've learned from your experience?
Well, there's a couple of things, but when I was recruiting, no, as running a real estate office, the thing that I really liked was the statistics of seeing somebody's growth, right? It's like somebody like you can, look at the data of like who's had the biggest year over year increase with their business. And maybe you didn't realize they've doubled, maybe they've doubled their business. Maybe it's doubling from 4 transactions to 8. Doesn't matter, right? It's still they doubled their business in a year. Like they do it again, it's compounding, right? Like keep doubling your business. And calling people and say, hey, I was running the numbers for our area and I came across your name, and I just want to make sure to say congratulations. And they might say, well, 8 transactions isn't that big of a deal. Well, doubling your business sure is, right? And are you on track to do it again, to double it from 8 to 16, right? Are you, and then one of my favorite questions to ask somebody is, I would say, somebody who's on a good trajectory, is I say, who's helping you? Which is usually nobody, right? And I'm like, or what do you mean helping me? Right? And that's where I would say, like, you know what, why don't we sit down, let's like have a cup of coffee. Would love to hear a little about what you're doing, see if I could help you, support you, give you some tips or ideas that may work for you, but no harm, no foul, right? And again, we can get into the objections after that on how to do that. But a lot of people are like, it's basically a free coaching appointment, right? If you're running a real estate office, you are inspiring and coaching and growing the people on your team, and you probably can't help it as far as coaching other people, right? So why don't we do it with somebody who actually wants us to coach them, and have that conversation of like, hey, happy to help you. I use humor a lot when I recruit. And so, because it actually calms the nervous system, because sometimes there's that guard up with people, is I use a lot of humor to make people laugh. And And so it was just the like, hey, look, I'm not going to bring up, the question was, is this a recruiting appointment? Look, I won't bring up the name of my company unless you do. I just, and I said, look, I only want to help the cool people in our area, right? Everybody else can get out of the business. I just want to help the cool people, and I like you, and I want you to succeed. And everybody would kind of laugh, and you paid him a compliment. Now paid him a compliment twice. One, told him congratulations for doubling your business. Two, you're one of the cool people, like the cool kids, or the land of misfit toys, depending on how you want to look at it. So I tend to be a misfit toy, but that's okay.
Yeah. I love that example because I think it's one of the questions that a lot of customers have asked me is I understand why I should reach out to people whose business is down. If somebody's business has been cut in half over the past year, I know that they're probably feeling some pain. I know that my call could catch them at a good time. But they'll say to me, how do I reach out to people whose business is up? Or they'll see those people, in Corded, or they'll see them somewhere. I don't know what I'll say to these people. They doubled their business in the past year. Clearly they're happy. They're not going to want to move brokerages. And I think that is a difficult objection. And I also think you answered it really well just now, which is who's helping you? That's such a simple way to kind of deflect that objection a little bit, and also just kind of pivot it towards a conversation. One thing you mentioned, I have a question about, which is, you said if you make 5 recruiting calls and you only get 3 people to come over, you're not going to be thinking about the 2 that you missed out on. What I hear from people is I've made 80 recruiting calls, and not only have I not gotten 3 people to come over, I haven't even gotten 3 responses to my calls or to my emails. So if you have somebody who's faced with that problem, what are some of the first things that you would recommend to them in terms of interrogating their own process, or what would you have them think about?
I would have them, I would have them record themselves, right? So not record the call where you're the other person, but just, figure out a way that you can record yourself and listen to what you're saying. Because most of us have some sort of a way of doing this that is clearly not working in that scenario, right? And the biggest mistakes I see most people do with recruiting is they want to have the recruiting appointment over the phone. And that's not your goal. Your goal is to get the appointment. You would, again, the analogy with the listing presentation, you would never do a listing appointment over the phone. That would be weird and ineffective. Well, the same thing happens with recruiting, right? You don't know enough about their business and what their pain points are in a phone call. You can't possibly. You can look at their numbers and say either they're struggling or they're killing it or they're status quo or whatever, but you don't know enough about their business to know what they need in a phone call. Your one goal on a phone call is to get the appointment. That's it. And once they say yes, hang up. Great, see you tomorrow. Right? Or whatever, right? I mean, I used to, sometimes the way that I would do is if we're going to meet at a coffee shop, it's like, hey, if I get there before you, what's your coffee order? So, so then there's a little bit of tie there to the call. And so it's like, okay, cool. And then, 5 minutes before, I'm like, hey, got here early, ordering your coffee now. It should be here right when you walk in, right? So, so that there's that connection. But most people attempt to do a recruiting presentation and vomit all over them all the cool, well, we do this and we do that, and you're going to make more money, or you're going to have more time, or blah, blah, blah. We don't know what they need yet. Right? It's way too much information, and you have no idea what's going on in their lives and their business to have any validity around it. Somebody said it's like a doctor writing a prescription without diagnosis. Like, that's malpractice. So most of us, I did it at the beginning too. So I did it too. I've done it. I'm vomiting all over people. And because I was so excited about what we've got going on and what some things are happening. And so you want to tell everybody about it and then end up vomiting all over them instead of, again, we got to diagnose if there's any pain points. If what they've got going on is working and it's working for them, great. Then turn it into a consulting or a mastermind meeting where it's like, okay, tell me what's working for you. Because I'm meeting with a lot of people and I'm learning about what's working in this market. Right? This is a challenging market for a lot of us. or, hey, it's not challenging for you. So now I got to know what's your secret sauce, right? We are, maybe don't give me all the secrets, but give me a couple of things so that, again, the cool people can be successful in this market.
Yeah, I think that resonates fully with me. And I think the the concept of the cold outreach, right, is one in which, by definition, they haven't asked you to go tell them everything about yourself and why your company is so great. So if we're kind of interrupting their day with outreach because we have a free second to make a call, I think the objective from my perspective is to immediately put yourself in a different camp from what everybody else is doing. What everybody else does is, hi, Katie. My name's Sean. I'm calling on behalf of the broker in charge, Chris Camp. He's super excited to meet you. At which point you're thinking, if he's so excited to meet me, why wouldn't he call? And who are you? You just lost all your credibility because you're talking about somebody else, right?
Yep.
And so I think if we reach out, I think of those first 5 to 10 seconds as like the most critical in cold outreach. And so before this, we were talking about, celebration opportunities and like some of the things that we could say. You mentioned this kind of agent who's doubled, and that's one example. What are some of the other things that you could look for
Mhm.
in the data or in their business that might be those kind of compliments, list of kind of compliments that you could kind of have prepared for that person as almost the first thing that you say, such that you earn the right for another 15 seconds on the call where you
Right,
can
right,
then
right.
say what your name is?
Well, I know, somebody has a new listing. That's always a reason to call people. Hey, I saw your listing. Are you doing a broker's tour? I'd love to come by and see it. Right. That starts. How did you get it? How'd you get the listing? Right. Congratulations is a great one. Congratulations on your business. Yeah, obviously somebody whose business has dropped, right? It's just like, hey, I'm checking in on you. And I used to get that, they're like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, I've been looking at the numbers and I've seen, everybody's having a decrease. And I ran across your name that that things have been a little challenging. Or maybe you spent 6 months in Tahiti. How was Tahiti? Right. And then again, they laugh and like, nope, not Tahiti. It's just been tough. And I'm like, and then it's hey, I've been meeting with a lot of agents, some agents that are actually killing it in this market. And I've got some ideas that may help you get maybe 2 more transactions in the next 6 months. You open a meeting and talking about it. Or are you good? Because, hey, the reason my business dropped off is because I just had a baby, or I'm taking care of an ailing parent, or whatever. I don't know. Did they go to Tahiti? Like, it's great, good for you. So, I mean, there's all sorts of reasons why people's business drops off. Makes perfect sense. Like taking care of an ailing parent, right? Yeah, I get it. No, hey, how can I help you? What resources do you like? Then you take off your recruiter hat and you just be a human being. Like, where's your mom or your dad? Where are they nearby? Do you need support? Do you know? I mean, we're all highly connected people as realtors. We know everybody in town. That's what we do, right? So, hey, how can I support you in whatever's going on? Are you struggling and you're thinking about getting a side job because you can't pay your mortgage and you need help right now with making money, or do you need help with some other things going on in your personal life and that's why your business has dropped off? I don't know. We don't know why. Again, they could have been traveling in Europe for 6 months. Great. So don't make the assumption, this is what happens a lot, that a lot of people will make the assumption that their business dropped off because of the market. Ask. You don't know. Like, no, we're not a mind reader. So that's one of the things. The other thing I love to do, which is super fun, is go through the last 90 days, or maybe even from the beginning of the year, of people that look at all your closed transactions in your office and look who the agent was on the other side of the transaction and call them and thank them. Hey, I'm just calling to thank you. For what? Well, you did a transaction with our office, and I apologize, I haven't gotten a chance to call you first, but I just want to thank you for being in business with us and on 123 Main Street. I'd love to get feedback on how the transaction went, because I'm constantly looking to make our office better, to improve our systems or our training programs. And so the only way for me to get better is to get feedback from people like you that have been in business with us, and so are you available for a cup of coffee tomorrow? And most people, most realtors love to give their opinion. It's fantastic, right? So play the hand you're dealt. If you want to, if agents like to give their opinion, great. Then have them give their opinion of, doesn't mean you have to take their advice. It just means you create a space for them to share some feedback. And I think all feedback is valuable, whether or not you are going to change anything about your business or your company, it still offers perspective. And maybe you hear that same feedback from 4 or 5 different agents from other brokerages. You're like, huh, okay, maybe this is more of a thing than I thought. And I need to maybe look at it. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, I think that's really relevant advice, I think, for a lot of people on the call, because they can really easily get their list of co-brokes or mutual connections in the Corded platform. And I love that idea of starting the conversation with thank you, because they immediately have no idea what you're talking about. And
Right.
it's very different than someone launching into something about recruiting. I think for some of the other folks that are maybe say leaving a voicemail and then never getting a response, right? That doesn't mean necessarily that the agent is a bad agent, or that the agent, doesn't ever want to join your firm. It's just, we have to appreciate, and I'm sure many of us on the call are like this. I am certainly myself. We get so much connection requests from people in a day, right? So many texts, so many emails. It's really hard to kind of stay on top of it. And so, when I was in my role recruiting, I'd leave this kind of very compass centric voicemail over and over again. And, now I realize, well, probably the best practice. We have a lot of different kind of new feature that came out last Wednesday called Pipeline Alerts and Corded, where we'll tell you all of the interesting milestones about the agents that you are trying to recruit, whether it's their first listing in a zip code, the highest closed sale of their career, whether it's a recent co-broke with someone on your team. There's about a dozen of them. And so if you're looking for a different way to celebrate, I think that is, there's a whole host of reasons or triggers to reach out. And so I encourage folks to take a look at that, versus saying the same thing over and over again. And I think the other opportunity here, right, is I think time is your best friend, or speed is your best friend when it comes to some of these celebration opportunities. So Katey mentioned almost having to apologize for saying, I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to get in touch with you, even though you did a deal with my agent in January. The sooner you reach out as that kind of interesting event occurs, the more powerfully it's going to be received by the agent. And so if the listing hasn't even closed yet, it just went pending, and then you reach out, to Katey's point, every contact you have with an agent is an audition for what is it like to be managed by you.
Yep.
Right. And so if you then get a sense of how organized and how on top of it, and how you were able to come up with an insight that wasn't immediately obvious because there's some context around the milestone, like their first listing in a zip code or their highest close sale of their career, I think that's where it can land really powerfully. And that doesn't need to only occur once you're face to face with the agent. Like, you can actually do that in the prospecting process and really have the timeliness and then the content of what you're sending really stand out. Another question, and it's represented in a few different items that folks have shared, is just the channel.
Can I just say there's something about
go
the
ahead.
pending thing, just real quick.
Yeah.
The thing about the pending that's actually really cool is what I did, and it's very effective, is to call and say, again, congratulations that we're, in contract with this, as the managing broker of XYZ company. If you have any challenges, or if there's something, hey, sometimes things go sideways in a real estate transaction. I just want to make sure that you can call me for anything. I'm happy to be involved and support in whatever way you need. And then I'd love to get your feedback at the end of the transactions on kind of how we did. So you're already setting up yourself to make that call at the end of the transaction when you call and say, congratulations on getting in contract. We're looking forward to a smooth transaction. If for whatever, any reason, something goes sideways, because there's no such thing as a smooth real estate transaction, that will, I'm here to help. I'm here to be a resource. And then I want your feedback. So it's a way to set up that, like, oh, by the way, I'm going to be asking for an appointment at the end of this transaction, right? You're already planting the seed. They know it's coming.
Yeah, it's a really good point. Katie, any insight from your perspective on the channel? So people have asked about video messages, so like Loom videos or BombBomb videos. People have asked about text messages, emails, phone calls. Um, what's your kind of perspective on any of those?
I mean, I like video, text, they're good. The thing about most agents, and so I want you guys to think, it's easy to put your hat, I'm in recruiting mode right now, and like I'm super, but then also think about your realtor, right? So as a realtor, how do you digest information, right? Especially quick information. For most of us, it's a text, right? Or it's a quick email with your information in a subject line, right? Where somebody doesn't even have to open up the email, like the basic your question or your prompt or your hey invitation to or whatever is in the subject line. So and we know that most realtors don't, myself included, we don't like to read past the third sentence, right? So anything too long is going to get overlooked. So we want to keep it quick. I like videos because they're fun and you can see body language and you can see facial expression and all of that. Though if I'm, as most agents are driving in their cars, right? They're not likely to watch the video text while they're driving, like, oh, I'll get to it later. But you can always listen to a text, right? So you can have your car play it to you or what have you. I mean, this is gonna sound really, really old school, but old school, and for some cases it works because it works, and that's belly to belly, right? So go to the networking events. Can I share my story about open houses?
Yeah, please. I was just about to ask you about it.
So one of the most effective things I've ever done in recruiting was I would get the list of open houses, and particularly people who were like the untouchables, like they would never return my calls, they would not respond to anything, but they're kind of in that your top 50. Like if I could get one of these top 50 agents a year into my office, it would be life-changing, right? These people are, they call them head turners, that when they move, everybody's head turns. They went, where? Right. So, and they couldn't get that. So what I would do is I would, on an open house day, I would look to see if they had any open houses, like on a Saturday or a Sunday. And then map out my route based on where these top people I wanted to go see were going to be. And sometimes it is somebody on their team, which is fine, but a lot of times it was them, right? It's their listing and they're going to be there in the open house. And I would bring food. I brought McDonald's cheeseburgers and a bottle of water. And I had it so I could keep them warm. And I would walk in and I would say 90% of the agents were like, I'm starving. How did you know? And I'm like, because none of us ever remember to eat before going to an open house. And then all we have is this tray of cookies that's sitting there. And we know that they're hungry. And so they were like, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And I'd go and look at the property. Congratulations. How did you get the listing? This is great. Whatever. And I'm like, hey, I'm not your typical cheesy sales manager. And then they'd laugh at me. And I'm like, does this give me an opportunity to have a cup of coffee with you? And I'd always say yes, right? Because you're engaged, you filled a need, you're laughing a little bit, they get to engage with you. This is a belly to belly business. Our business is belly to belly, voice to voice. And that's not only with our clients, it's also with the other agents in our community and people that you're looking to recruit. If you can get belly to belly with people, open houses are a great one. Brokers tour is a little bit more difficult because there's constant traffic going through, but sometimes on an open house on a Saturday at 3 o'clock, there's maybe not a lot of people walking through and you get a little bit of time, but time enough to give them some food, or maybe you go get, I don't care, bring them whatever food you want to bring them, but they're starving. And give them something of sustenance, not a cookie or a candy or something like that. They need like a little sandwich or something, right? Of some, but it was hilarious. I could not believe the number of appointments I got from doing that. It was every time I did it, it was a riot. I actually went with a title rep. We went together because she was wanting to meet some of those same people, and then we had a blast all afternoon. It was just fun. So make it fun. Like recruiting is not supposed to be this drudgery. of like, oh, I have to make my recruiting calls. No, you get to. You get to call people who you know are amazing people in our industry and to form deeper relationships. Even if they never change brokerages, you get to deepen a relationship with a top performer or with somebody that you respect in the business or somebody that you haven't yet met, but you've heard great things about them. Like that sounds like fun to me. Well, it is fun. It still is fun for me to have those
Mhm.
conversations.
Yeah, I think that's a, go ahead,
Just
Chris.
just a quick as chief interrupter,
Yes.
I will take advantage of my role there. Just wanted to say to everybody who is on, we are going to probably in about 5 minutes move into a section that we're calling Stump the Professor. So if you have any objections that you hear in recruiting conversations, please put them in the Q&A. We're not going to get to all of them. It's going to get very large very quickly. And I saw, Darren, you already have a couple in there, so I'll make sure we cover those first. We're going to pose those to Katey as if she were receiving them and just kind of hear back like what the reaction would be. If you stump Katey, first 5 people to stump Katey, we will send you a $10 Starbucks gift card. So hopefully that will incentivize some good action.
Those
So we'll get to that
competitive
in
people, the competitive
we'll
people
get
are
to
like,
that
I'm on
in
it.
4 minutes.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Thank you, Chris. So a couple of questions from the chat. So Michael asked a good question, which is, what's the best way to quickly gauge how competitive your value proposition in recruiting is, like relative to the market? And what might you need to change to make your offer stronger out of the gate?
Okay, this is a great question. I love it. Is it Michael? Is that who asked the question?
Yeah, Michael.
Thank you, Michael, for asking. What a great question. My suggestion would be to test it. So the way you test it is you call people who maybe have told you, or I'm never leaving my broker. Great, perfect. This is what I need to do. I need to practice my presentation. And since I know you're never leaving, could I do a practice one with you and you could give me feedback, right? And tell me like what I'm missing, right? And then I used to do that with listing appointments. When I first got into the business, I would call people who I respected, said, can I come to your house and practice listing your house so that I can get better and get feedback? Because that was literally why I was doing it. And then of course, when they went to sell their house, who'd they call? They called me, right? Because they'd already seen my listing presentation. Like, you don't need to show us, we already know, just send over the contract. Okay. So the same thing will happen in the future, but I don't know how to think of it in that way, but go practice it. Maybe, you know what, another cool way to practice it is get your top agents in your own office to practice it with them. Hey, I want you to pretend as if I'm interviewing you to come, we're having an interview or we're having a meeting, and I want you to put your hat on because, hey, when you refer me people that you think would be great for a company, I want you to know what I'm saying to them. So if what I'm saying is crazy or ineffective or amazing, I'd like to get feedback to how to make it better. Doing a couple internally and doing a few externally will give you great feedback.
Yeah, I think feedback is the name of the game. You can also do it with people who have said no to you, right?
Mhm.
So you recruit someone and then they decide to stay where they are, or they go somewhere else. And then you ask them, hey, just because I'm trying to constantly get better and interrogate my own process and even what we offer, what are some of the things that were more compelling about this other opportunity? I'd also say to you, Michael, that far too often the recruiting pitch is kind of very verbose and would take 5 minutes for them to explain to their spouse or child at the dinner table. And I think the companies that have grown the most over the last couple of years, in one sentence, they could explain to somebody not in real estate why they should join that company. And so this practice of just trying to make it very, very concise in almost one sentence. And then all the things you offer, all of the services, all the training is kind of the supporting evidence for that one sentence, that really concise reason that they should join your company specifically now, I think is good, is something to practice. And then I think, Michael, you also asked about data. If you're making a lot of offers to agents that you're really excited about and few of them are accepting, that's a really good reason to kind of go back and reassess your value proposition. If most of the offers that you're delivering are accepted, I think you've shown the right value proposition to that agent. And I will also say the value proposition can and should be different based on what agent you're talking about. Every
Yes.
agent is on a specific part of their journey. It's not always linear, but a buyer's agent wants to be, first time buyer's agent wants to be a trade up buyer's agent who then wants to do listings for their first time, who then wants to do more expensive listings. Whatever that part of the journey is, the services, the support, the other things that you offer, the commission plan, that should all be reflective of that next step they're trying to accomplish. And I think it's best when you can show results. Results can be a case study of an agent at your company that looked like the recruit when they joined and then made it to the next level or the next level above that. And who's best to give them that feedback? The agent themselves. So if you can bring your own really happy agents on your roster into the process because they've successfully taken advantage of your listing marketing services, or they have a great experience with their transaction coordinator, and they save a whole bunch of time so they can focus more on prospecting. That's the type of feedback that they may want to hear from your agent. So, Chris, can we do one more question before the exercise?
Well,
Yeah,
Isaac, can I
absolutely.
just touch on that
Yeah, go
real
ahead.
quick, just on
Yeah,
the
of course.
agent, what the agent wants? Sorry, Chris. So I had a question I asked in every recruiting presentation, and the question I would ask is, if you had a magic wand, it could change 3 things about your business, what would they be? And the hardest part after that is shutting up and listening and asking questions for clarification, just so you're really clear on their 3 wishes. Every time I did that, I'm like, oh, I can grant that wish. Like, no problem. And so, but I would wait to get all 3 wishes out. And then it was like, hey, if I could grant you one of your wishes, would you be open to learning a little bit more about our company? And they're like, you can grant wishes? And I'm like, yes, I can. Right. And sometimes there were weird things, but there was always, and that was to your point, Sean, about like going home and saying, why are you interested in this company? It's like, well, if you can grant one of their wishes, they're going to talk about that. And everybody's wish may be different. They said to where they are in their career. I had a guy one time I met was a top agent, and he had not been to his kid's soccer game in 2 years. And I literally yelled at him. So I was mad. I was like, what are you doing? Like, this is insane. And I had a flip chart paper and I tore flip chart and I was like, okay, we're going to build out a perfect week for you. Like, cause this is insane. No, I won't. No. When's the next soccer game? We're putting it on the calendar. Right. And so, and changed his life. Right. So, but it had nothing to do with, he didn't need more business. He needed organization and some structure and somebody to frankly yell at him. But since he was a top producer, nobody yelled at him. They're always like, oh, let me give you more signs, more open house signs. It's like, that's the last thing he needed. So it was, there's those sorts of conversations that you don't know what they need until we ask.
David asked a question around new agents versus experienced agents. And I have some data around that, but Katey, I'd love for you to maybe give your perspective on recruiting new versus experienced and what are some of the trade-offs.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's well, new agents tend to take a lot of energy, right? Because they're learning. I loved recruiting new agents to learn from an experienced agent, right? If my focus as the leader was to create culture and trainings and recruiting and to provide, additional value to my people, I didn't necessarily have the time. I was also running a larger office to do like a weekly, couple times, 2-3 times a week meeting with new agents. They need somebody who's going to be like a mentor. But the best thing about a mentor is that if you could have them working with 3, 4, 5 agents that are new all at the same time, that may be new, they've been licensed within the last year. And then you set it up of like, we only have 5 spots or 8 spots or however many spots your mentor is willing to take. And they get a percentage of what's done for their first 3, 5 transactions, however you want to set it up in your company. But then it's a mentoring program. And so when you have openings, you congratulate agent Chris, who just, graduated from our new agent mentor program, and we do this big celebration and it's all over social media and we have a party in the office and because I like parties, but do some sort of notification. Chris emails his entire database. I just graduated from this program, super, blah, 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 blah. hey, we have an opening now for 1 or 2 new agents to our program. If you're thinking about getting into real estate or you know somebody that is, please let me know. So now
Mhm.
there's, now it becomes a fine at people. It's scarcity, right? It's a little bit of a scarcity mindset, but it's also fair to your mentor that you're just not going to throw 20 people at them, right? Because that's too much. But there is having somebody that's running that loves that. Maybe they're semi-retired and they love to mentor and teach and volunteer. And so play into their strengths. And it's a great way to recruit to a mentor. If you don't have one, recruit to it. Like, I'm looking for somebody to help us, develop and run a mentorship program and cast your vision. And then they become, it's like a leadership role, right? With something
Mhm.
built in. Experienced agents sometimes sometimes take as much time because it depends on why they're coming over, right? It depends on that magic wand question, right? As a genie in a bottle, right? What is their wish? Well, if their wish is to get, in the case of the example I just had, get a bit more organized and structure in their business, we got to unravel things, like kind of undo it to build it, break it down to build it back up. That takes some work, right? That takes some sitting down and doing some analysis and figuring it out. If it's they came over because you have one really amazing program, or they came over because their current company, the owner retired and so, just kind of closed the doors. They may just come over and just going to be business as usual. So, but it's still making sure with an experienced agent that they are connecting with your culture, that they are involved in your culture, that they're becoming part of the family, right? You're bringing them into welcome to our family. This is how we do things here. And this is how we'd like you to, but I think the reason that people were coming, ask them, why did you decide to join us? What are like the 2 things or 3 things that were most interesting? And then make sure that they're experiencing that at a really high level, whether it's interacting with other agents, whether it's plugging into a program, whether it's your office location because it's near to where they live, right? I don't know why, but you need to know why. And be really, really
Mhm.
clear. Same way you would know the motivation of a buyer or seller. Why are you moving? Moving is horrible, right? What is wrong with you? And it's like, oh, you're moving because you're pregnant with triplets and you need a bigger place. Oh, well, let's get on it. The same thing as when people are moving real estate offices. Why are you moving? What's going on? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I've heard of many situations in which that important component about why they switched wasn't reflected to the person who was doing the onboarding. And then the owner or the manager is shocked months later to hear that, like, the basic stuff wasn't done that was kind of taking into account what that agent needed. So that kind of handoff from the recruiting function, it may be you doing both, right? In which
Yeah,
case, like, document it and remember
remember it.
what's being said. But then otherwise, if it's a different person, like, make sure that's transferred over to your colleagues who might be doing the onboarding. And the last thing I'll just say on the new agents is the well-publicized NAR stat is that 85% of new agents drop out by the end of their second year. That number is higher over the last 2 years because we've been in a slow market. So just thinking about if you're looking to recruiting as this kind of financial savior to kind of pull you out because you can't cut expenses any further, doing experienced agent recruiting can often be an easier solution to getting out of that kind of financial stress that maybe you're in today. Okay, I think we're going to move over to Stump the Professor. I saw one question in the chat which connects back because you said something about family. I think Noel asked a question okay, the objection is, my broker is like family. How do we handle that objection?
I had a recruiting appointment one time with her broker was in the delivery room with her when she had her baby, right? That kind of family, right? Like, wow. And she left that brokerage because what she was getting there wasn't helping her business. It was a friendship relationship. And so whenever anybody gives me an objection, it's a bit of as an improv tool that's like, yes, and. Right. It's like, how awesome that you guys are like family. That sounds fantastic. I'd love to learn a little bit more of what that's like. Do you have time for a cup of coffee tomorrow? Tell me about that. I would love to learn how is that? Right. And because they're not going to tell you on the phone call that they love their broker and we're really good friends with their broker and we even vacation together with our families, but they're not getting the support for their business that they need. right? They're not going to tell you that in a phone call. That's going to be uncovered as you get in relationship with them. But it like, I love my broker. How awesome. That's amazing. That's fantastic. I'd love to know what you love about your broker and what's amazing so that we can, again, I'm only talking to the cool people. I want to know what the cool people are doing.
Mhm. And so I can learn maybe some ways that I can improve my own brokerage, right? So
Right,
it doesn't need to be super salesy. There have been a couple of questions that are similar around, I'm happy where I'm at, which is, I think, a very common one.
Very
So
common.
Katie, how would you
Yes.
handle that one?
Well, Sean, I love happy people, right? I only like to work with happy people too. So that's fantastic. And I said, I'd love to learn what makes you happy in this kind of a real estate market and what's working for you. And then I'd be happy to share with you some things that I'm hearing from other agents that are top producers like you to maybe, give you an idea or a strategy that can help you with your business. Are you available for coffee tomorrow at 2 or 3? I don't sell them on the call. Get the appointment.
Hmm.
I'm happy. Great. I
Hmm.
love happy people. Can we only have happy agents in our entire industry? Can we get rid of the grumpy people? I just want the happy people. We all need to stay together. Let's only do business with the happy realtors. No grumpy realtors.
Hmm. Yeah, really like it. A couple of questions. So there's two kind of two. The first one is, my current brokerage or an offer that I've gotten has better financial incentives, so lower fees or a better split. Like how do you encounter that one?
That's awesome, right? It could be like great. Like don't argue, don't play tug of war with anybody, right? Like that's awesome. Great. Hey, I don't know enough about you and your business to know if our financial model makes sense or not, because there's usually more than only the financial model or why people are at different brokerages. But I don't know enough about your business to know if we're a fit or not. I'd love an opportunity to sit down and get to know you and learn a little bit about your business, share with you some things I'm hearing in the marketplace, and make this a win-win meeting. And if we're a match for each other, I'm happy to have a conversation. And if not, then you should absolutely stay where you are. So you
Hmm.
the fastest way to end a game of tug of war is to drop the rope. So just drop the rope. Don't argue with them, especially on a phone call.
Hmm. Very good. Another question. So uh, I like going into an office time to time, but the person recruiting is working at a virtual company without an office. How
Mhm.
would you handle that?
Oh, where's your favorite coffee shop? Right? Do you have a favorite coffee shop or lunch place? Or I mean, I've even done recruiting appointments like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Are you a walker or a hiker? Or, like, let's go for a walk. Let's go get some exercise, get some fresh air. Not an allergy season, but but you can meet people anywhere. You can meet like, hey, great. I mean, there's a title company, a mortgage company. Sometimes people don't go to a co-working place. I've been to co-working places where you can rent a spot by the hour, right? And it's not that expensive, but it's private and people are coming and
Hmm.
going. It's not a big deal. And agents sometimes are uncomfortable, like, I don't want to be seen at your office. I've met agents in a hotel lobby, right? Like, let's just meet, there's a hotel like 2 blocks from where you are. I'll meet you in the lobby, right? And we'll grab a cup of coffee, or depending on the time of day, we can get a cocktail. Doesn't matter to me, right? So let's meet there. So there's plenty of places to meet. A lot of agents, even if you do have a physical location, they don't want to be seen there sometimes.
Hmm. What about if you're not even in the same market as the recruit, so you don't have the opportunity to actually meet them even for a walk?
Okay, so yeah, a lot of cloud-based brokerages will do recruiting outside of their areas. And that's, you still want to get the Zoom meeting, right? It's the appointment is the Zoom meeting. And it's like, hey, I just want to, and it's getting to know you. I've done recruiting where in a cloud-based environment where I call people I hadn't talked to in 10 years. And I'm like, hey, let's just get reconnected. What's going on with you? I have no idea what's going on in your life outside of Facebook. Right. So let's get caught up and let's go on. And, are you talking to me about, moving? And I said, I don't know yet. I haven't talked to you in 10 years. I don't know, maybe, but this
Hmm.
just gave me an excuse to call you. right? So if you're calling top producers or calling people that fit a certain criteria that you're looking for, just tell them, hey, I'm looking for agents in this area because we're getting a lot of referrals for this area. Or we're getting a lot of people that are moving to our area from your area. Don't know if there's an opportunity for us to connect or to be support for each other. Love an opportunity to talk to you about some strategies around that. Are you available tomorrow at 3 o'clock? And I'm going to send you a Starbucks gift card, electronic cards. You can go get a cup of coffee on me.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to ask two more questions, if that's okay. So one is kind of a fun one. I've actually gotten this a couple times, which is, I'm just not interested in meeting with you. Is
Okay.
there a response to that one?
Yeah, and then I say, why? And then shut up. Why? Well, I don't, am I interested in moving? Well, good. That was usually the response. I'm not interested in moving. So awesome. I never ask anybody to marry me on the first date. Right. And so that would usually get people to laugh. Or they would, I'm not interested in moving. And I'm like, that's cool. But in my case, I was running a mid-sized to large real estate company. And I said, look, you are inevitably going to be doing a transaction with one of the agents in my office, whether we're on the listing side or the buyer side with you, because you are a top producer. And wouldn't it be good to at least have met the broker of the office in case something goes sideways and you need help on a transaction? Wouldn't it be nice that you and I had already met and shaken hands and had a cup of coffee together? I don't know that we're a fit for you. I'm not gonna ask you to leave your brokerage if it doesn't make sense. But I said, if nothing else, maybe I can be in the backup position, but I don't even know if I'm that yet because I don't know enough about your business to know if we're a fit. But I think you do
Mhm.
enough business with enough of our agents that it's important for us to be in relationship.
Mhm. And one kind of fun one, unless you're maybe this person, I really like you, Katie, but I can't stand your owner.
Hey, yeah, no, yes, I totally get that. And it's all the more reason for you and I to be in relationship. And I am happy to help you, right? I'm happy to support you. Let's just make this a networking event. Let's talk about business. Let's talk about the market. Let's talk about how we can help each other. Like I said, I only want to help the cool people, right? And okay, right? So they don't like your owner. Owners change. If you are running a real estate office and you're working for the owner, and you may decide to change, you still are going to want those relationships. And if you're going to be in business and real estate over the next, 5 years, then you've got to, then you should still be in relationship with the top producers. So it's okay they don't
Mhm.
like your owner. Sometimes you might not like your owner. That's okay too.
Mhm. Well, this is great. I think in the last couple minutes we have we're actually over on time. Thank you. We still have over 150 people in attendance, which is fantastic. We're over. Thank you everyone so much for joining. Katie, can you tell us a little bit more about some of the things that you're doing now, and we can share some of your information in
Sure.
terms of how to get in
Sure,
touch
sure,
with
yeah.
you?
So I work for Constellation One, which is a real estate technology company. We are developing a program called Home Intel, which helps agents get really comfortable picking up that 10,000-pound phone, as we talk about the similarities, to their warm contacts. How do you find leads and develop those relationships where you are prepared and ready to be there when somebody does have a life event where they need to buy or sell real estate? And so it's a tool designed to do that. We're actually going to be launching in early May. And so if you are a broker owner, we are looking for early adopters. So if you're curious about what this product is, I think you're going to put my email address in there. I've got Coach Katey is the one I use the most for all aspects, but I do have another email that we can use, but we'll use the Coach Katey email for this one and take it from there. I'd love to talk to you if you are running a large team or run a brokerage. We're looking for early adopters, where we're going to offer it free for a couple of months and to get some users and get feedback, because we talked about how much we all need feedback.
Perfect. Perfect. Well,
And
thank
so
you,
sorry,
everyone. And
trying. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, Katie, can you just say your email quickly, just so in case anyone's about to drop off,
Sure,
and then we'll
it's
put it in the
Katey,
chat.
Katey @ coachkatey.com. You can also just Coach Katey. There we go. You know, the Coach Katey's my website. And so if you forgot that, you can just Google Coach Katey and find me. And it's got a picture of a playground on the front of my website. So Katey@coachkatey.com is perfect.
Perfect. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope
Thank you.
the session was useful. Katey, Coach Katey, thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
spending time with us today. I think it was very helpful, right? Too many of these webinars are just like the high level strategy or just the numbers. I think going through these like really specific examples and like how did you respond to this type of thing? I think it's very different than the types of sessions that I generally listen to. So really appreciate your time, and thank you everyone for joining us and submitting so many questions in the chat. Looking forward to the next session. Hope you
All
have a
right,
great
me
rest of the day.
too. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Thanks everybody for being involved in the questions and feedback. That's fantastic.